No, no, this is not what I wanted. Not this. But her mouth was dry. She couldn't speak. She couldn't move. She just stood there watching. The mermaid bent down, picked up the baby gently, and carried her in her arms. She rocked the child softly. Then she turned around and began to move back into the water. Ada was only 18 years old, but her life had already been filled with pain. She grew up in a quiet, poor village in Nigeria. When she was just a little girl, her parents died in a car accident. It was the worst day of her life. After the burial, her only living relative, a grandmother, took her in. Her grandmother was a kind old woman with gray hair and a warm smile. Even though they didn't have much, she always made sure Ada had something to eat, even if it was just gari and water. They lived in a small mud house with a leaky roof and an old mat for a bed, but it was home. Ada felt safe there, surrounded by her grandmother's love. But then one morning, everything changed again. Her grandmother had gone to sleep the night before as usual, but when Ada tried to wake her up, she didn't move. "Grandma, Grandma!" Ada called, shaking her gently. Still no response. She began to cry, screaming for help. The neighbors came and confirmed what Ada feared most. Her grandmother had passed away in her sleep. That day, Ada's heart broke into a million pieces. She was now truly alone in the world, with no family, no money, and nothing to her name. Life after that became incredibly hard. Ada took on small jobs for people in the village just to survive. She helped women fetch water, wash clothes, and clean their homes. Sometimes they paid her with leftover food, other times with just a few naira, but she never complained. Some days she didn't eat at all. Then she met Chidi. Chidi was a boy from a nearby village. He had smooth skin, a bright smile, and always wore nice clothes. He spoke gently and looked at Ada in a way that made her feel special. He told her she was beautiful and kind, and he made her laugh again. For the first time in years, Ada felt loved. One night, he held her hand and said, "I love you, Ada. I want to marry you one day." She believed him. That night, she gave him everything. A few weeks later, Ada started feeling strange. A trip to the local clinic confirmed her fears. She was pregnant. Her legs felt weak. She ran to tell Chidi, but his kindness was gone. "What do you mean you're pregnant?" he asked, his face blank. "It's yours," Ada said, holding her stomach. "Please, we can raise this child together." Chidi laughed coldly. "Raise what? I don't want this baby." "That's your problem, not mine." "But you said you loved me." "I said what I needed to say," he replied. "Don't ever call me again." He walked away and never looked back. Ada stood there, shattered. People in the village began to gossip. They called her a bad girl and told their daughters to stay away from her. Her belly grew, but she had no money for proper clothes, only old wrappers tied around her waist. She gave birth to her baby girl all alone in her hut, cutting the cord herself with a rusty blade. When the baby cried, Ada cried too. She was too heartbroken to even give her child a name. The baby had no bed, no toys, no soft blankets. She slept on a thin mat beside her mother. Every day was a struggle for food. Sometimes Ada fed her baby watery pap and drank only water herself. Her bones started to show. Her body felt like it would collapse. One morning, before sunrise, Ada did something she never thought she would do. She tied her baby to her back and walked quietly to the river. She placed her down gently by the water's edge and kissed her forehead. The baby was crying again. Ada couldn't look her in the eyes. She hid behind a nearby tree, her heart pounding. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. Maybe someone will find her and give her a better life. Minutes passed. Nobody came. Then, something strange happened. The baby stopped crying. Ada peeked out and couldn't believe her eyes. A mermaid was rising slowly from the river. Her skin shone like polished bronze. Her hair was long and black, and her eyes were as bright as stars. She wore a gown made of flowing water and seashells. She was like a goddess. The baby was no longer crying. In fact, she was smiling at the mermaid. Ada's mouth fell open in shock, her body frozen. The mermaid moved closer. Ada whispered to herself, "No, no, this is not what I wanted. Not this." But she couldn't speak, couldn't move. She just stood there, watching. The mermaid bent down, picked up the baby gently, and rocked her in her arms. Then she turned and began to move back into the water. Ada wanted to scream, to run and stop her, but her feet were like lead. The mermaid slowly entered the water, still holding the child, and then she was gone. Ada ran to the river's edge, screaming, "My baby! My baby! Please bring her back!" But it was too late. The water was calm again, as if nothing had happened. She fell to the ground, her hands on her head, her soul feeling completely empty. The mermaid, whose name was Yemoja, swam deeper and deeper into the river, holding the baby girl. The water around them began to glow with a magical light from colorful plants and shiny rocks. The baby wasn't crying. She seemed peaceful, as if she belonged there. Yemoja held the child close and whispered, "You are special." She swam swiftly through the underwater world, past houses made of giant shells and gardens of coral, until she reached the main street of the Mermaid Kingdom. Other mermaids saw her and gasped, "Is that a human baby?" one whispered. A curious mermaid named Folklore quickly followed her. "Yemoja, what are you doing with a human child? Are you mad?" But Yemoja didn't answer. She rushed into her large, shell-shaped house and locked the door. Folklore knocked and shouted from outside, "Yemoja, you have to explain. The king will hear about this." Inside, Yemoja gently placed the baby on a soft bed made of seagrass. The baby looked around with her bright eyes and smiled. Yemoja sat beside her, her own eyes shining with joy. "My name is Yemoja," she said softly, "and I will call you Nneka, because you are a gift." She tickled Nneka's belly, and the baby laughed, a sound that filled Yemoja's heart with a happiness she hadn't felt in a very long time. But her joy was cut short. Suddenly, there was a loud knock on her door. Boom! 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 Yemoja froze. "Yemoja of the Coral House," a deep voice called. "You are summoned by the king. Come at once." It was the royal guards, two strong mermen with sharp tridents. Yemoja's hands began to shake. She had broken the greatest law of their kingdom, never bring a human into their world. She looked at Nneka, who was still smiling innocently. "I can't leave you," Yemoja whispered. She wrapped Nneka in a soft cloth just as her parents appeared at the door. "Yemoja," her father said sharply, "what have you done?" "Papa, Mama, please let me explain." "You brought a human baby here?" her mother cried. "Are you trying to bring a curse upon us? If the king is angry, he may punish our entire family." "She's just a baby," Yemoja pleaded. "She was abandoned. I couldn't leave her there." "You have a kind heart, daughter," her mother said, "but sometimes kindness brings danger. Return her now before it's too late." "I won't," Yemoja said, her voice now strong. "She needs me. I'm going to the king." She swam past them, holding Nneka close. The royal guards escorted her to the palace, the largest and most beautiful place in the kingdom, made from giant shells and magical stones. The king of the mermaids, Oba Adewale, sat on a silver throne. His eyes were old but sharp. When Yemoja entered, the room fell silent. The king looked at her, then at the baby. He stood up slowly. "What is this?" he asked. "This is a human child," Yemoja said, her voice trembling. "I found her by the river. She was abandoned." The king's eyes narrowed. "You brought a human into our sacred world." "She feels different," Yemoja insisted. "She's not like the others." The king stepped down from his throne and looked closely at Nneka. The baby smiled at him. Suddenly, the king's face changed. His eyes grew wide and he stepped back. "This child," he whispered. Then he looked at his guards, his voice filled with a strange fear. "Take the child out of this water," he commanded. "Return her to the human world at once." Yemoja's heart dropped. "No, please," she begged, but the king wouldn't look at her. The guards signaled for her to move. She had no choice. She swam out of the palace on a painful journey back to the surface. She gently placed Nneka on a patch of grass by the river's edge. As soon as she let go, Nneka began to cry, stretching her tiny arms towards her. The sound broke Yemoja's heart. "It's done. Let's go," a guard said firmly. But Yemoja couldn't move. She looked at Nneka's crying face and felt a pain she had never known. "I can't leave her," she said quietly. Before the guards could stop her, Yemoja scooped up Nneka and with a loud splash, dived back into the river. "Yemoja!" the guards shouted, chasing after her. But she swam with all her might, straight back to the king's palace. She burst through the doors. "Your Majesty!" she cried. "Please, I can't leave her. I tried, but I can't. I love her like she's my own." The king's face was filled with rage. "You dare defy my order?" he roared. "You choose a human over your own kind." Yemoja fell to her knees. "I don't know why, Your Majesty, but my heart chose her." Her parents rushed forward, begging for mercy, but the king's face was hard. "If she loves the human child more than her own world," he said slowly, "then let her join the humans forever. I, Oba Adewale, place a curse upon you, Yemoja. From this moment you shall no longer be a mermaid. You are banished forever." Gasps filled the room. Yemoja's heart dropped. The guards held her arms and led her away. She looked at the faces she grew up with, at the home she was losing forever. Then she looked down at Nneka, calm in her arms. They swam upward one last time. When they reached the riverbank, a strange wind blew. Yemoja's silver tail shimmered and then split into two long legs. Her glittering scales disappeared. She stood up on human feet, a young, beautiful woman holding a baby, with tears rolling down her cheeks. She was no longer a mermaid. Her new life had just begun. Yemoja stood by the river holding Nneka. She had no idea where to go, but she started walking. For 2 days she walked, her feet bleeding, her body aching. She fed Nneka with wild fruits she found. At night, they slept under trees. On the 3rd day, she found a village. A man took her to their ruler, Chief Okoro. Yemoja bowed. "Please, I need a home." Chief Okoro looked at her kindly. "You may stay," he said. "There is an empty hut near the mango trees." The hut was small, but it was safe. That night, an old woman named Mama Bisi showed Yemoja how to light a fire. The next day, she learned how to fetch water and cook. Slowly, she adapted. People saw how hard she worked and began to like her. But some, like a young man named Nneka, were suspicious. "She came from nowhere," he told others. "What if she is not human? Yemoja felt their stares and worried her secret would be discovered. One night, the words of a visiting herbalist, "That woman smells like river water," confirmed her fears. She packed her things that same night and left, seeking a new, safer home. After 2 more days of walking, she found a quiet village by the hills, far from any river. The ruler, an old man, welcomed her. Here, Yamoja decided to start a business. She remembered her skill at making bead jewelry in her underwater kingdom. She gathered stones and seeds and began crafting beautiful necklaces and earrings. The women loved them. Soon, her business boomed. She became rich, built a big house, and was known as Madame Yemoja, the bead queen. Nneka grew, too, into a little girl with big eyes and a bright smile. Yemoja told everyone, "She is my gift from the river," and nobody knew the full truth. One hot afternoon, a thin, tired young woman came to Yemoja's house asking for work. Her name was Ada. "I am looking for work," she said. "I can cook, sweep, and clean." Yemoja looked at her with pity. "You can stay. You'll work in the kitchen." And just like that, Ada, the real mother of Nneka, began working in the same house where her child now lived. But neither of them knew the truth. In the village, a kind and handsome man named Dio often visited Yemoja's shop. He admired her hard work and her love for Nneka. "Madame Yemoja," he would joke, "when will you give me your heart?" But Yemoja was afraid to tell him her secret. Finally, one quiet night, she gathered her courage. "I have something to tell you," she said to Dio. "I was born under the water. I used to be a mermaid. I was banished because I refused to abandon a human baby. Nneka." To her surprise, Dio nodded slowly. "You are kind," he said. "It doesn't matter where you're from. I see your heart. That's what matters," Yemoja cried with relief. But neither of them knew that someone had been listening from outside the window. It was Ada. She had been passing by when she heard the words, "I found her crying by the river." She stopped and listened to the whole story. Every word hit her like thunder. "She's talking about my baby," she whispered to herself. She is the one who took my baby. And Nneka is here in this house, my child." Tears rolled down Ada's cheeks. She ran to her room, her body shaking. She remembered that day, the guilt, the shame, and the relief when the mermaid took her baby away. She never went back. And now, her child was alive, calling someone else mother. Ada cried into her hands, completely lost. Should she speak? Should she stay quiet? Should she try to take her child back? Another episode of this story drops soon. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching.